Of sense and soul. Well, this certainly looks peaceful, which is something I could use right now, so... This is a story about moments and lives lost to time. Countless people have come and gone. We remember them as part of history. Tell me, dear player, have you ever wondered about the personalities, struggles, and joys of people long past? I have. Why? I want to know what they knew. I understand. Life is full of enough questions as it is. Even the recent past can blur before one's eyes, let alone the distant past, its fragmented voices, objects, and events. They're hard to piece together from our standpoint, but perhaps back then people weren't so different from us. The story ahead is an attempt to bring lives that might have existed to the forefront, to share the stories of two men in 1875, and imagine tracing their footsteps through the smog-covered streets of Victorian London. Their lives become intertwined and together begin to bloom and unfold, though the garden they grow together rests on their actions and choices alone. Oh, okay, this seems cute. I've been really wanting to divulge in some queer content and some feel-good content, so this seems fitting. No one person can tell how their story will end, and yet we regret the decisions we make once we've followed them to their conclusion. Another's life story is in your hands now. I wonder, what will you make of it? Well, I guess let's see. Let's see, baby, let's see. I've got my lemon tea. I am ready to go.
Let's see how we might go about setting the scene.
Oh, come on, voice acting. I love this. I know very little.
Yesterday evening, a quiet neighborhood was shocked by scandalous reports.
Oh, fabulous. I know very little about this game. This is a demo, by the way.
One of its residents was engaged in a most surprising endeavor.
Is that right, Hugo?
Residents were left to question whether they truly understood their fellow man at all. There. Even these ordinary little scandals can have a bit of the poetic in them, if one only knows where to look.
I love that this is voice acted. I wonder if it's going to be fully voice acted. Ah, evidently not. Ha! Well, that's what sells the paper, isn't it? We can't all have literary aspirations, can we?
Ah.
No, not all of us can be Mr. Brooks. Any more of him and this place would turn bohemian overnight. Isn't that so, Mr. Brooks? Eyewitnesses reported that Miss Carstairs' account was...
Huh?
Mr. Brooks, in the interest of, and preserving the public decency... Brooks! We at the Daily Creed can only caution our readership insofar as... Brooks, lost in the page again, hey?
Oh!
Oh, I'm sorry, gentlemen. Were you saying something? Oh, you just proved my point, Brooks, that's all. Well, I'd best be getting home. My wife will be wondering after me before long. Have a good evening, boys.
Take care.
And Mr. Brooks, try not to get so drawn in that you forget to go home yourself.
Of course.
Don't you worry about me. I'll be along shortly. I just wanted to finish this article and then... Ah, he's left. In fact, most of my other coworkers have too. Not unusual for Saturday, but... Away home for the evening then, I suppose. If I leave now, I can even stop by the library on my way. I depart from an almost empty office with my bag tucked under my arm. And now what? Hugo's Route, Chapter 1, The Editorialist. April 1875, London. Alright. What a day, and I'm sure Monday will be just as tiring. We are working to a deadline after all. That's odd. Someone has left a newspaper out. Could it have been Mrs. Wright? That's unlike her. And how strange, it isn't the normal paper. Instead, it's...
Really?
The Matrimonial News. Seeking the acquaintance of a most attractive young lady. Heavens. I can't imagine how or who. There you are. I was beginning to wonder if you'd gotten yourself lost on the way back from work. Now who is this? Camilla, you startled me.
How are you?
Hello, cousin. I hope it isn't too much trouble that I've stopped by unannounced. It is. Don't ever stop by unannounced, honey. No, not in the least. You know I'm always glad to see you. And I you. Besides, I felt awful to not have been to see you on your birthday 2 years ago. Oh, 2 days ago, excuse me. I thought I should at least come by now and make sure the festivities weren't wild enough to overwhelm you. Please, festivities. I had a nice, quiet night in, but thank you for thinking of me, and for sending a letter and your present. Just the letter was appreciation enough. The gift was lovely. It looks like it must have taken you ages. A bookmark is something I can always get use from, and I can't imagine the work that goes into embroidery like that. No, I'm sure most men find it well beyond them. But I worry that you spent the day alone. Surely your colleagues at the Creed must have at least come by to wish you well. Oh, I'm sure most of them hadn't the slightest idea that it was my birthday at all. And really, Camilla, you know I don't mind. I liked the quiet. There's nothing I like better, in fact, than a peaceful night at home with my books to keep me company. Honestly, same. And video games, and internet, of course. Other than a visit from your favorite cousin, I'm sure.
Of course.
Oh, of course. If I had known you were coming, I would have rushed home after work instead of going to the library. I'm only teasing, Hugo. The whole family made peace with coming second to your reading long ago. But I suppose that is why I'm here, in part. Of course, I wanted to wish you well, but as part of that, I wanted to come by to express a little gentle familial concern. Concern? Concern over what? Well, my dear Hugo, I can't imagine it's comfortable for you out here all alone. Do you really mean to be a lodger for the rest of your life? Well, I am comfortable here. Mrs. Wright is good to me as any landlady could be, and the rent is very reasonable for this area. I only mean... What do you mean, girl? Well, I suppose your mother nominated me, seeing as you and I were always closest to one another out of all the cousins, to come and press you gently on the subject of marriage. Marriage! What? Oh, don't act like it's such a ridiculous idea. You're just 3 years from turning 30, Hugo. It's well past time you should start thinking of these things. And we all worry about you, you know, all alone out here, only going to work and back with no human contact. Just your books and letters. What is she talking about? My life is perfectly wonderful. There's nothing to be concerned with in the least.
Honestly.
I have human contact. I have my colleagues and Mrs. Wright and, well, you come and visit me sometimes. But you just said your colleagues don't know you particularly well. And if that's the sum total of your list of friends and loved ones, you've made me more concerned, dear cousin, not less. Girl, who asked for this? I just got home from work. Leave me alone. Oh, don't look at me like that. I haven't come to drag you directly to the altar now. I just thought, well, your mother thought, and I agree, that a small reminder that you aren't getting any younger wouldn't go amiss. Girl, go home. Go home. No one asked for this. I wanted to come home from work and chill, and here you are grilling me about my life choices. Get the hell out of my house. I'm not altogether sure about the look on my face, but I'm certain it isn't pleasant. Of course not. Chin up. It's not so bad as if you'd been born a lady. You would have started getting these sorts of well-meaning visits a decade ago, at least. And I suppose it was you who brought in the newspaper?
Yes.
Clever as always, yes. Of course, I'd be more than willing to introduce you to some fine ladies I know, but knowing you, I thought a written introduction might be a little easier for you to stomach. Whichever tactic ends up working is the most effective one, after all. It does sound at least a little less daunting than being introduced in person, though I'm still not certain I see the point of all this at all. I'm not the eldest son. I don't need to carry on the family name. Nathaniel has that well in hand, I'm sure. No, but marriage is still a beautiful thing. Companionship, if not romance, is a beautiful thing, Hugo. Since I met Howard, I won't tell you that life had no meaning before. That would be doing you a disservice. But when I stand at his side, suddenly the future is a little brighter and the world a little warmer. Of course, I knew Camilla and her fiancé were very much in love. It's obvious to anyone who sees them. But hearing her speak of it in these terms is new, and it's striking. Camilla sighs and takes a moment to collect herself. When she speaks again, her tone is a bit more level than before. Just promise me you'll at least give that paper a look, all right? Have a read over it and see if you can't find even a single young lady in there who strikes your fancy. Well, only because it's you, Camilla. All right, I promise. And I'm sure that's why your mother sent me instead of anyone else. All right, good. Camilla stands up, taking her hat and gloves with her. Well, with that settled, I had better be getting on.
Oh!
So soon! I'm afraid I must be home to help with dinner. Howard will be joining us tonight. Really, that's a treat!
Yes.
Yes, he had business nearby this afternoon and promised to make an appearance. But I'll pass by your parents' house on the way. I'm sure your mother will be wanting an update. Hopefully, my word will keep her mind at ease for a good long while and give you as much time as you need to determine a course of action. Just as long as there is a course of action. Girl, mind your business. Thank you, Camilla. It was nice to see you, truly. Even if you came bearing this. You as well, dear cousin. Good night. Bye, girl. I didn't ask for all this. I just wanted to chill. And once again, I am left in the quiet, alone. Well, alone save for the matrimonial news. It sits on the table forebodingly. I can't believe she talked me into promising anything at all. What a ridiculous idea, as though anyone could fit their whole self in one little block of text, enough to get to know them. As though any of it will be of any interest at all. I'm sure these are all from perfectly lovely ladies, but... I skim over the text. MC, age 24, skillful in housework. That's not much to go off of, is it? AF, 30, affectionate, fair, some means. Oh no, she appears to be from Dorset. That certainly wouldn't work. KB, English, Protestant. All right. Seeks engagement as companion to a lady. Well, I won't waste her time then. After scanning through hundreds of listings, I put the paper down and sigh. I should have known. None of these are suitable for me. Many of them are just replies to other notices.
Honestly.
Well, at least I can tell Camilla I tried. Only one more, and then I can truthfully say I read through them and found none of interest. SC, age 25, of good appearance and position, seeks to open correspondence with a gentleman of an artistic nature and a mind and manner akin to the advertiser's own, with a view to future happiness. Editor has address. Intrigued, huh? Well, I suppose poetry is among the highest forms of art, isn't it? I have to say, I truly didn't expect any of them to be quite so... I suppose it wouldn't hurt to respond, would it? Surely the lady won't write back, but then at least I can tell Camilla I have truly tried my best. No one could fault me for that. I'll just write her one letter, and that will be all I hear of it, I'm sure. But what if she were to write back? I don't suppose I can risk that. Camilla and Mother can fuss all they like, but I'm perfectly happy, and I haven't the time to find a wife, not if I ever wish to be taken seriously as a writer. Well, whatever I decide, I suppose it can wait. For now, I'd best find something to eat and try to get in a little writing before it gets too late. This is adorable. I love this so far, and it's so well written, too. 2 days later. I stand at the door with my letter to Miss S.C. in hand. I've read it over so many times in the past day that the words no longer feel real. Though, given my penmanship, they might as well not be real. I hope she can make out my handwriting. I really can't believe I'm doing this. I shouldn't be doing this. Oh, Camilla, if you weren't my favorite cousin, I dare say I... Well, I would be very put out with you right now. There's a new crease in the paper from my absent-minded fiddling. I smooth it out with a sigh and slip it back into the envelope. Well, no use wasting any more time dithering. I'll put it in with the Morning Post, and that will be the last I hear of it, I'm sure. After all, I'm certain that no sensible young lady would want to write back to me.
Oh!
Goodness, is that the time? I'd better be on my way. I do still have that article to finish. Doo-doo-doo-doo. And we're off.
How are we feeling today?
Morning, Mr. Brooks. You went home the other night after all, huh?
Good day.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Bentley.
Really?
Are you sure it's a good morning, though? You're looking a bit peaky there.
Of course.
Of course I am. Perfectly fine, yes.
I beg your pardon.
Thank you for your concern, but if you'll excuse me... Goodness, do I really look that poorly? Pull yourself together, Hugo. It was only one letter, and it's out of your hands now. Brooks. Oh, dear.
Really?
Did you finish that article on the Carstairs business?
Oh!
Mr. Coulston, yes, that is, I'll have it for you in just a moment. I only had a few final thoughts.
Huh, you don't
This
say.
isn't the Oxford Press, Brooks. It just has to sell papers, not win any blasted awards. Get it to me now, or better yet, 5 minutes ago. Yes, sir, of course. He's in a bit of a temper. I must not be the only one running up against the deadline for the upcoming edition. I'd better get to it. Alright, get on that. Mr. Coulston may not always be the easiest to get along with, but he does provide a wonderful distraction from the thoughts of Miss S.C. The time, I'm afraid, gets away from me.
Hello.
Mr. Brooks, there's mail for you. Time for the afternoon post already.
Really?
For me? What? Oh. Oh, no.
Huh?
No? I'm sorry, nothing. I mean, thank you. Thanks. She wrote back. More than that, even. She wrote back right away. Oh. It's just a note from Camilla. Goodness, what's come over me? Of course it couldn't have been the woman from the advertisement. I gave her my home address for return, not my workplace. This whole affair has got me more twisted up than I'd like to admit, it seems. It's odd. I'm relieved, of course, but at the same time, I'm just the tiniest bit disappointed.
Ah.
See, Mr. Brooks, it was only a letter after all.
Oh.
What? You were looking at it as though you thought it would bite your hand off. One would think you'd never seen paper before. Uh-huh.
I beg your pardon.
Well, if you'll excuse me, I'm afraid I really must be getting back to work, and... I know. Coulston here will have all our heads if we miss the cutoff time for printing. Yeah, get away.
Heavens.
I suppose Camilla might have been right about one thing. It's possible I could stand to get to know my coworkers a little bit better.
Honestly.
Thinking I'm afraid of a letter, honestly. With Mr. Hammond back to his own work, I can actually read Camilla's note. Dearest Hugo, let this letter serve as a bit of encouragement to you. I have been thinking of you since Saturday evening. It is never easy to step outside one's familiar social setting, and I know it's particularly hard for you. I wanted to be sure you knew that difficulty was recognized. Your mother is terribly pleased with you, I think. She was most relieved to hear that I had convinced you to try and reach out. You must know that the both of us think the world of you. We only want to see you happy. Now, with all that affectionate nonsense out of the way, I will return you to your work. Far be it from me to distract you for too long. Yours, as ever, Camilla Brooks. It's always good to hear from her. And I do know that she means well, of course I know that. Whether or not there's a letter waiting at home from my mystery advert girl today, or tomorrow, or ever, that won't change. That's all well and good, and it's easy to say it, but I prefer not to feel so anxious about the whole thing. I suppose there's no sense in worrying, but that doesn't make it any easier not to worry.
Tick-tock, tick-tock.
Brooks, have you finished your damn edits, man? Mr. Coulston's prompting, on the other hand, helps more than it probably ought to. If I'm writing, I can't be worrying at all, can I?
Of course.
Very nearly, Mr. Coulston, if you'll give me just a few moments. The rest of the afternoon passes without too much fuss. Focusing on work truly does make it easier to forget my worries, at least for the time being, and Mr. Coulston certainly doesn't complain. I worry that, one of these days, he'll combust while yelling at someone about a deadline. But not today, and not because of me. I get my final edited articles into him more or less on time, and I'm on my way home before I know it. Really, I suppose I have been making an awful fuss over nothing. What a preposterous thing to be so upset about. I'm sure I gave some poor girl a good laugh, that's all. Besides which, it is after all only one letter. I'm under no obligation to do anything more, and furthermore... So, really, there isn't any cause for dismay. I'm sure that everything will be... There's a letter on the table, right on top of the Evening Times. It must have just come in the post. Perhaps I could just ignore it. No, I'm being ridiculous, I'm being preposterous, I had better just open the blasted thing. Mr. Brooks. Oh goodness, here it goes. I was delighted to receive your response to my advertisement. You'll forgive me for saying so, I'm sure, but I found your letter positively charming. I should very much like to have the opportunity to meet you, so we might get to know one another beyond the page. Perhaps we could meet for lunch at a favorite establishment of mine this coming Sunday. It is on Bishopsgate Street, and it serves a fine cup of tea, or coffee, if it is your preference. Please do let me know if this plan suits, and I shall eagerly await your reply. Yours, hopefully, S... I'm not even going to try to read that. Heavens, I feel like I need to sit down. Well, she doesn't want to meet until Sunday at least. That's nearly a week. So I've got time to decide. Yes. I've got time to think about it logically and reasonably, and I suppose I don't know what's stopping me.
Really?
Miss Charkham seems perfectly lovely. Why, she said she thought I was charming. Me, of all people. I don't remember the last time anyone said something like that about me. I'm not sure anyone ever has, in fact. It wouldn't be so terrible just to go for lunch, would it? What on earth am I so afraid of? I'll write her after dinner and put it in the Morning Post. Maybe the Afternoon Post. I'm not sure I should look too eager. But I'll write to her all the same, and that will be that. Camilla is going to be shocked when I tell her. I might have to stop by in person just to see the look on her face. But perhaps dinner first. It wouldn't do to write on an empty stomach after all. Oh, how cute. It's not that I'm avoiding the matter. You are, kind of. I'm just taking time to consider it properly. Still, there's only so long I can delay. After a hearty meal, I sit down to a fresh page with pen in hand. All right, I'd better get this letter written now, or I'm never going to. Now, what to write? In her reply, she said I was charming.
Really?
I don't know that I've ever been charming before. It might be a bit difficult to do it on purpose. I suppose we'll see. All right, let's respond to SC. I'll start by writing. To the most lovely and charming Miss Charkham. Nothing could have possibly made me happier than receiving your response. That's coming on a little strong. Miss Charkham, really, that's nothing. Dear Miss Charkham, I was delighted to receive your reply. That sounds a little straightforward business-like, but you know what, that's okay. Oh dear, I'm only now realizing that my hand may be a bit coarse for this application. I do hope she can tell that's meant to be Miss and not a tangled ball of string. Well, any road, there's not much I can do about it but keep going. I look forward to meeting you as soon as can be possibly managed. Sunday is far too distant. Might I see you tomorrow? No, absolutely not. I would be pleased to accept your offer and await further details so that we may meet. That's nice. I am honored by your swift reply, and your proposal suits me very well. I greatly look forward to making your acquaintance. Let's do the middle one. Safe. No, I don't like that. That's too business. I am honored by your swift reply. There we go. Confirm. Confirm and send. Keep it short, keep it cute, keep it simple. That ought to do it, I hope. I certainly wouldn't want to overdo it. If she liked my first letter well enough, she ought to like this one as well. And I've certainly spent enough of my evening dithering over correspondence. I can worry about this again when it's closer to Sunday, I'm sure. Alright. Chapter 2, The Actor. May 1875. Oh, what's going on? We got a cutscene. We got a cutscene. Mind if I join you, Seamus? That's how you say that, right? I don't actually know. James takes my mumbling as assent and sits on the armchair across from mine. My, the chairs here in the corner of the lounge really are quite plush. I should sit here more often. Might miss out on some stories from the others, but my rear will be happier for it. I snort, shaking my head. They'd likely follow you over here if there are rumors to be shared. With only 2 chairs. I suppose they could share this one if you would share yours with me.
What?
Sharing a dormitory with you was cramped enough, let alone a single chair. I came, I saw, I conquered. As suddenly as James had appeared, his expression turned serious. I didn't come over here to bicker with you, Seamus. You seem out of sorts. What's the matter? Nothing's the matter. No? I take a deep breath, my fingers gripping the wool of my trousers. No, not nothing. There is something. I don't know. How can I begin to explain this blunder I've made? Why I'm as affected by this as I am? Where to go from here? James presses a short-stemmed glass into my hands. The scent of brandy wafting from it is sweet, but with a sharp alcoholic edge that threatens to pull emotion right out of my chest. Have a drink. Take your time. I don't mind waiting. A few hours prior. The morning of the day I am set to meet Mr. Brooks dawns bright and sunny. Well, bright and sunny by London standards. It is admittedly nothing compared to the countryside, but I quite prefer the comforting press of the buildings and even the familiar fog from the burning of coal. The house is fairly quiet in the mornings. Truth be told, it's fairly quiet all the time, though the decor might suggest otherwise. It's hardly the first time I've met a potential suitor, but something about the air of mystery, meeting someone I've known only through one solitary letter, thrills me. A knock at the door draws my attention, and I look up to see Cornelius entering the room.
Yes, sir.
Your cab has arrived.
Mm-hmm.
Ah, thank you. I've just got to get my hat, and I pat my pockets down, looking for my gloves. Where did I put those? I look up to find them right in front of me, extended to me in Cornelius's hand. Your gloves, sir. Yes, right. I pull the gloves on and flex my hands to fit them securely. They feel strange, smoother and sturdier than when I wore them last. Is this a new pair? Yes, sir. Seeing as you stressed today's outing would be of significance, I thought you might want them replaced.
I see.
And the old pair? Shall I retrieve them? No, it's all right. The cab's waiting. I had better be on my way.
I see.
Yes, of course. You didn't even thank him?
Take care.
Goodbye, sir. You don't thank... How are you not going to thank Cornelius for being so thoughtful? I had picked the meeting location carefully, and only after receiving Mr. Brooks' letter, I'd had a few potential places in mind. Crosby Hall, my final selection, has a few advantages, and as I draw nearer, my conclusions seem substantiated. It seemed a promising place for a first introduction. The luncheon bar there is reasonably priced at this point. I can only guess, but it seemed unlikely to be prohibitively expensive, and it is somewhat less formal on account of that. It attracts a sizable crowd, enough to offer a shred of anonymity, as it were. Besides, the food is good, the atmosphere convivial? I don't know that word, and the place itself is lovely. I doubt Mr. Brooks is here yet. I intentionally arrived rather early. I'll do well to get a table, ideally with a view of the door. He'll be here soon. A waitress shows me to a table where I settle and watch for any sign of Mr. Brooks. Crowds ebb and flow as luncheon goes on. Perhaps I got here slightly too early. Mr. Brooks certainly isn't late, far from it. It's not yet our agreed upon time. Yet I feel as though I've been waiting for years. Wait, could that be him? There's a man by the entrance who, inexplicably, I can only describe as looking bookish. I get up from the table and make my way towards him. I haven't actually seen Mr. Brooks, and he didn't offer a description of his appearance, so I could be wrong, but I very much doubt I am. He's facing away, but he's looking around as though confused or searching for someone. And he's alone. It must be him. It must. I'm within arm's reach of him. There's no turning back now. Here it goes.
Pardon me, but are you Mr. Brooks?
Oh! Why, yes, I am. And you are?
You about to get a culture shock, baby. He turns, and I finally see the face of my mysterious respondent. Oh, look at him, so cute. Otter types. Love him. Perhaps Crosby Hall was the wrong place for this after all. In the afternoon light streaming in from the tall cathedral windows, there is an oddly ethereal glow to his figure. His eyes take my breath away. Even from behind his spectacles they look like sunlight on the moors, vast and verdant, contained in just that gaze. I'm sorry, I'm afraid
I apologize if I startled you. I just had to be sure I had found you.
Oh dear.
I beg your pardon.
I'm sorry, and I suppose you are Mr. Charkham. Oh, I've rushed right past, haven't I? Yes, I am. It is so wonderful to meet you properly. You're just as I imagined you to look from your letters.
Of course.
Yes, indeed. Good afternoon. I shake his hand, which, despite its size, is cool to the touch. I've managed to secure us a table. Shall we talk there? After you, sir. As I move through the restaurant, I am keenly aware of being watched by Mr. Brooks, who follows close behind me. Am I to his expectations? No, probably not, but, you know. I may not look the type to put up a personal advert, but I suppose he doesn't look the type to respond to one. Still, expectations or not, he wanted to see me. He came for the express purpose of doing so. What have I to fear? Upon reaching our table, I pull out a chair for Mr. Brooks, and he sits with a polite nod of his head. Thank you for agreeing to meet with me, Mr. Brooks. I don't doubt you're a busy man. Well, I don't work terribly far from here. It was no trouble at all.
I don't believe it.
Really? What a coincidence. May I ask whereabouts? Oh, just on Fleet Street. Really not far by bus. My usual haunts are more towards the end of the Strand.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps we could meet in the middle on future occasions.
Of course.
Yes, indeed. I can see his rising nervousness. It shows in the tenseness of his shoulders and the tightness of his smile. First meetings are daunting, especially with such an unconventional premise. But I'm surprised a man of such stature would be so demure. I take the bill of fare placed on the edge of the table and hand it to him. The lunch menu here is a set one. The only thing to worry about is what you'd like to drink with it.
Really?
Ah, thank you. I was wondering. A waitress came by to accept our order as soon as I mentioned that fact. With our drinks secured and the first lunch course on the way, I take the opportunity to encourage conversation. Now, Mr. Brooks. His gaze snaps up from the menu to meet mine.
Oh,
Yes? I do hope I can ease his nerves somewhat. Your letter was so brief. You know at least a little of my interest from the advert I posted. But I don't know much at all about you. Tell me a little about yourself. Myself? Yes. Well, I'm a writer.
Mm-hmm.
A writer? Fascinating. What is it you write? Well, I'm employed as an editorialist, but... An editorialist? What does that entail? Those pieces at the start of the newspapers, editorials? I write those. I see, so you're an editor? No, I just write them, I'm afraid. My editor prefers to leave the writing to me. He sighs, wringing his hands in front of him. I'm sorry, I'm not very good at this. I've become quite tongue-tied with introductions. That's all right. I appreciate your candidness. It's refreshing, really. Why don't I tell you about myself first? Perhaps that will help. Help Seamus think of something to say. Would you like to turn off time choices before you do? No. I don't even know what that means. No. Make a quick choice. Okay, let's go. My family is from Shropshire. I moved to London a few years ago. I enjoy theater, and spring is my favorite season. And most importantly, I'm delighted to make your acquaintance, my dear Mr. Brooks.
really?
So polite. I see, how interesting. That was a terribly quick few facts about me, but I'm sure we will come to know more about each other with time.
Of course.
Oh, yes, of course. Our food arrives in good time, just as we've reached a lull in conversation. We had both grown quiet.
There's been a tension lingering between us, but it could just be my own fretting.
Mr. Charkham,
Yes, Mr. Brooks?
I fear I must be honest with you about something.
A tightness builds in my chest.
Please? Go on.
You see, that is to say,
No.
heavens, I'm sorry, Mr. Charkham.
No.
You see,
Aw.
I made an error in reading your advert. I had thought that you were... that this was...
At once, Mr. Brooks' blanks fill in my mind.
You thought I was a woman.
Oh,
I'm... afraid so, yes.
I stare at him in bewilderment.
How could... Then why...
Questions race through my mind, but what comes out is...
I see.
Oh.
Well, these things happen. I'll waste no more of your time then, Mr. Brooks.
I rise from my seat, folding my napkin next to the untouched cutlery in front of me.
Mr. Charkham,
My face is growing hot with emotion. Embarrassment? Guilt? Shame? Whatever it is, I want nothing more than for this feeling to go away and to leave this place. I reach for my hat and gloves as stiffly as an automaton and bid Mr. Brooks goodbye.
Terribly sorry for the mix-up. Please, stay and enjoy. I'll take care of the check.
Oh, damn.
Mr. Charkham, wait, please.
Mr. Brooks' outburst is the loudest he's been all afternoon, and the surprise of it stops me in my tracks. Several nearby patrons turned at the sound. Mr. Brooks seems to have surprised himself. After a moment, he blushes, lowering his voice as well as his gaze.
I apologize for my misunderstanding.
Oh, he's sweet.
Please, if there's anything I can do to remedy it, tell me what it is and I will do my best.
He's apologizing to me. Oh, it's almost worse than if he'd shouted me down or fled.
I search Mr. Brooks' gaze for a moment. His emotion certainly seems genuine. Nonetheless, I take a deep breath and straighten myself before responding.
Mr. Brooks, there isn't anything to remedy. As I said, these things happen. You needn't concern yourself with the matter any further.
But I would like to concern myself with it.
Okay. Uncomfortable silence.
That is to say, I may have operated on incorrect assumptions about your identity, and I don't think I am what you were looking for.
I mean,
But I don't
Seamus
see
was
why you
pleased.
should have to leave. I don't see why we can't continue to become acquainted.
he pauses for a moment, wringing his hands.
Your perspective may differ, of course, but I don't believe a conversation with an interesting partner is ever wasted, though I do
Aw.
suppose that my capacity to be an interesting conversational partner isn't nearly as great as your own.
Good Lord, what a truly fascinating afternoon this has turned out to be. I'm reminded that I'd started this encounter thinking it would be a thrill to meet a virtual stranger. Still, this wasn't what I had in mind. Though I can't help but feel a swell of gratitude for the man. He really is taking this much better than many would in his place.
Honestly.
And my goodness, but he's determined, even as the nervous twitch of his fingers belies the set of his brow. Oh, damn it all. On the contrary, Mr. Brooks, I believe your claim is very strong indeed.
Then,
I remove my hat and gloves and take my seat once again.
It would be a waste of good food not to stay and savor it, wouldn't you say?
The voice acting is so incredible. Relief washes across Mr. Brooks' features with those words.
of course.
Now, I believe we are due for a change in topic. I imagine working at a newspaper must keep you very well abreast of current events.
Okay, friendship date, why not? So that's what happened. An abridgment of it, yes. I placed my glass on the side table with a sigh.
What?
Then what happened after? Well, we had lunch and then I came here. To sulk.
Oh,
Is that what you say I'm doing? I prefer to think of it as rumination. Don't we all? But this new acquaintance of yours, he didn't seem to mind afterwards.
Oh
He
my!
must have had quite the shock himself. Some men might have taken a misunderstanding like that quite seriously. If only you knew the half of it, James.
oh,
No, he was
Oh,
perfectly
dear.
pleasant, very willing, eager even, for me to stay. Then what's the issue? What? It went fine in the end, didn't it? No one's feelings were hurt, at least not after clarifications were made.
I see.
I admit I may be blowing all this out of proportion. Don't be too hard on yourself. Bearing in mind what happened with Miss Hawthorne, I'm glad you're seeking romance at all. There will be other opportunities.
Oh,
I don't need to be thinking about Miss Hawthorne now, James. Maybe not everything ought to be traced back to my failed engagement. Damn it, he knows I still hate to think of that. He must know. I take a deep breath to calm myself. It's been 2 years now, and I'd appreciate if you didn't bring it up. I can't very well move on when I'm constantly being reminded of it. James stares at me for a moment, ready to retort, but he purses his lips instead, collecting himself. I won't mention it again. Thank you. It's just... I sigh, my head falling back onto my chair. I feel terrible that he felt terrible about this whole misunderstanding. It was my advert, after all. I could have been a bit clearer. No matter how straightforward one is on paper, there are some things words alone cannot express. Isn't that why you arranged to dine with this new acquaintance today?
Absolutely.
Perhaps the next edition of the Matrimonial News will turn up with other interested parties. Perhaps. We're interrupted by the sound of hasty footsteps as a fellow club member, Mr. Evans, approaches us.
Oh,
Seamus, James, I've barely noticed you were here, off to a stride like that.
hello.
What are you two been in the corner chattering about?
Oh, look who
Nothing
it is.
for your ears, I'm afraid.
Hello.
Nothing of note at all. But by the looks of the crowd over there, is there something going on?
Oh,
Oh, you must come listen. Mr. Rahim is regaling us with a riveting account of a student duel he bore witness to.
oh my.
A duel? With pistols, sabers, or fisticuffs? Have duels ever been mere fistfights? It was pistols, of course. Can't bring a saber anywhere without getting looks these days. Dear me.
What?
No casualties, I should hope. The lucky buggers came away from it with little more than bruised egos and academic suspensions. Well, one of the students' pistols did misfire on him, but the damage wasn't life-threatening. And Mr. Rahim attended to the man's wounds immediately. He's alive is what matters.
I don't believe
Thank God
it.
he is. He's lucky Mr. Rahim was there. Though I suppose the grounds of a medical royal college is the safest place one could duel. No shortage of doctors there. That explains the pistols. Does it?
Oh,
He was just getting to that bit.
what?
What are we doing over here? We'll miss the rest. Mr. Evans turns and strides briskly back to the gathering across the room. James and I leave our seats to follow after him. As we make our way towards the center of the lounge, I catch James's attention. James, I'm sorry for snapping at you earlier. I appreciate your concern. James seems surprised to silence by my words, but soon his face breaks out into a great grin. Seamus, you're rather more soft-hearted than you put on, aren't you? On occasion. What a little lobster you are. A lobster? What are you on about?
Oh my.
You've got a tough outer shell and a soft middle. A lobster. Your hair's even red. I'd call it more of an auburn. Close enough. Though a crab might make a more fitting comparison, considering how irritable you can be. And I know firsthand that your right hook is considerably stronger than your left, which I suppose would make you a fiddler crab. I lightly jab James' side as he snickers. Oh, come off it. Loath as I am to admit it, there's some truth to his analogy. That exchange with Mr. Brooks earlier was proof that I'm more feeling than I like to show. I'm glad to have a friend like James who's accepting of that. We make ourselves comfortable amongst Mr. Rahim's engrossed audience members who don't seem to notice our delayed arrival. As we listen to the rest of the story, the afternoon simply flies past. Night has fallen by the time I depart, and my dark journey home is brightened only by lamplight. Even hours later, I can't help but mull the day's events over again and again. At the end of our meal, which had extended quite past the end of lunch hour, Mr. Brooks had said,
Mr. Charkham, if I may, I have very much enjoyed our afternoon. To be candid, this experience is rather new for me on all fronts. I'm afraid my social sphere is rather lacking. But even if it weren't, I'm certain I'd feel just as I do now. That is to say, at your convenience, I would very much like to continue our conversation on another day.
And I accepted, against my better judgment. Mr. Brooks is a man who seems to be far more comfortable with letters on a page than being faced with another person. For him to discover the truth of my advert, still wish to dine with me, and then invite further companionship despite having every opportunity to leave this in the past. He wasn't at all as I expected, in the most curious of ways. He'll never return my interest, for one.
This passing fancy will never bear fruit, even if he's within reach.
Aw, damn.
And yet, I'm simply left with the desire
To know him.
to know him.
Don't fall for a straight guy, sweetie. It's never fun. Would you like to save your game? Yes, thank you. How considerate. That was a very cute intro to this game. I am very much looking forward to its full release. I'm kind of sad, actually, that this is just a demo. I randomly just kind of stumbled upon this on Steam and just wanted to play it. So hopefully there's more, and if there's more, there'll be a part 2 to this. But unfortunately, until the game is released, and I don't think there's a release date announced just yet. But I will link the all the stuff to do with this game in the description for those curious, because it's very cute and I am very interested.